Hello, everyone. Welcome to Microsoft 365 Pulse. We're going to officially call this our Turkey Day one because chances are we are not going to be recording next week actually on Thanksgiving. So welcome to our Thanksgiving special, even though that doesn't really mean anything, of Microsoft 365 Pulse. You're stuck with me, Tom, and Tamara today. Jen is off being important, doing important people things. And we're actually going to have a fairly quick show for you guys, similar to what we talked about last week. Not a ton of updates. It's just that time of the year. As always, we're going to be going through the 4 sections of release cycles through the Microsoft 365 roadmap. Quick refresher, in development is first. That's stuff that's been added to the roadmap that hasn't really started showing progress yet, but they know they're doing it. From there, it moves to rolling out. That means it's somewhere in the release cycle, all the way from first release, just a couple of people have their hands on it, to it's almost out there to everyone. It's just not quite fully launched. That leads us to launch, which means everyone, at least in the targeted cloud structure, so if it says it's going to commercial, it's going to government, whatever, should have that feature at that point. And then finally, canceled, which almost always doesn't really mean canceled, but we'll talk about that when we get there. So starting at the top, we're going to go ahead and go into it and talk about what we like that's been added to in development for the roadmap. So Tom, you want to go ahead and get us started this week?
I will be happy to do that. So there were a couple things on here that I think look interesting. So in Microsoft Search, they're coming up with bookmark recommendations, which is interesting. They are allowing, or they are setting up the tenant so it will go through across all your different searches and stuff like that to figure out, hey, a bookmark for XYZ might be something that you want to consider instead of waiting for somebody to figure out. It's like, hey, we've got a lot of hits for this. Maybe we should make a bookmark. I love the fact that they are trying to anticipate what things could be used in search to give you a better search experience. Everybody's like, search sucks. Well, this may make it suck less if it's telling you what kind of things that you could be doing bookmarks for to allow people to get directly to where they need to be. The other thing that is interesting, kind of since I'm in the healthcare insurance type industry, is that Microsoft Teams is doing an electronic health record connector for virtual visits in healthcare. Really interesting when you think about the fact that when you call your doctor and you do a telehealth visit, everybody's got their own software that they use and the whole bit. Well, now Teams can be tossed in there, and you can actually have a virtual visit and have your electronic health record available in that patient portal. They've hooked up with Epic, easy for me not to say. They've done with Epic, which is a provider for electronic health records. So this could be a game changer in terms of getting Microsoft Teams into provider offices and having it be something that people actually connect with in order to talk with their providers, see their electronic records, and this becomes a standard process to do the telehealth type stuff. Really looking forward to see where this goes.
Yeah, I think we're all three on board with the idea that the work environment is changing, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like with how 2020 has gone, I know I saw a quote from Bill Gates that he thought at least 50% of meetings going forward are going to be purely online. That there's no longer going to be the gold standard of in-person meetings and stuff like that. And I think there's going to be reverberations to stuff like even doctor's visits and things along those lines, where you go through and stuff that's traditionally been structured a certain way, that we've kind of been forced to learn new things as we go through and had to deal with everything related to this pandemic and with the coronavirus. I think it's forced adaptation in some fields where you're going to start to see stuff like that more and more common and more often. So kind of cool.
Well, just in general numbers too. I'm sorry, Tamara. In general numbers too, I know that last year when they looked at how many telehealth visits, were actually done, it was something like 25,000, which, it's like, gosh, it seems like this should be taking off. Well, then with COVID, in like 3 months, it was 250,000.
Yeah.
So it just really took off, and I'm hoping it doesn't go back because I have a doctor's appointment coming up. Oh yeah, I have a doctor's appointment coming up in December, and it's one where it's like You don't need to see me. You don't need to touch me. I don't need to be in the office, and we'll do it via telehealth. Awesome. I love it. So,
And these meetings and these appointments online save so much time and money.
oh yeah.
Because no one's flying out to the corporate office to have these meetings. They can now have them online. And they found they've been just as effective as in-person meetings.
Yeah.
And also, you don't have to drive from location to location. And you also don't have to walk from conference room to conference room.
Yeah. No, for sure. I am definitely, I think there's some power in networking and all that goodness, and I like a conference stuff just as much as anyone. But I'm not a big fan of traveling. I welcome not having to get up at 4 a.m. to make a 6 a.m. flight to, have to stay in a hotel where I'm not going to sleep well. Anything that I can do more remote, I'm down for. Anyways, Tamara, anything else you wanted to talk about from the rolling out or not rolling out from the in development section?
Well, there's a lot of stuff going on in GCC. So the Linux client is going to be available in GCC High. Task in Teams is going to be in GCC. So that's Task for the information worker. And Task in Teams is going to give you a new unified view of your personal and team tasks powered by Planner and To Do. So it consolidates your tasks across Microsoft To Do, Planner, Outlook, and smart lists like Assign To bring tasks together across different task lists, whether you're on a desktop or mobile. So that's coming to GCC.
Yeah, I was really excited to see the Linux client one. I actually have several customers I work with that are like contractors for the DoD that develop machined parts for like F-32s or something like that, but they actually do use Linux servers as part of what they actually use. And they talk all the time about how disconnected their Linux user force is from everyone else because the tools just aren't there on Linux that they are on other machines, and they still have the same controls and stuff they have to be, but just doing stuff like FIDO2 authentication into Linux isn't a thing, right? And so it's more like they have to put the Linux machines like doing authentication to get into the room where their Linux machines are and stuff like that. So any development going there is kind of cool. I'm going to call out a couple of things before we move on, just because I think it's cool. You're starting to see, and this makes sense, I think this is something all three of us kind of expected. You're starting to see some more development around the Defender branded stuff for Microsoft. One of the big announcements, or one of the big changes with Ignite this year was that they rebranded a whole bunch of the different protection stuff that they were doing around 365 as Defender. So there's Windows Defender, there's Advanced Threat Protection, there's Microsoft Defender. Basically, you're getting all these different products, whether it's for the cloud, whether it's for Windows, whether it's for your local network, and they're all being rebranded under the Defender shield. We're starting to see them go through and starting to add stuff onto the end development section for some of the new features there, which makes sense, right? If they're going through and rebranding stuff and kind of trying to market it in, it makes sense that they're going to be doing some stuff there. So they're adding network protection for Mac OS. So again, talking about doing stuff at the network layer, they're doing some stuff specifically for Mac OS that will monitor some of the health and the traffic going on at the network layer. They're also talking about doing advanced threat protection evaluation mode, which evaluation mode is basically a way of evaluating what everything is going on in the world of Office 365, get an idea of how stuff's working and things along those lines. I would expect these type of additions to continue over the next several months for the Defender suite itself. This is them trying to bring more premium features and more nice stuff. And I would also expect a push from the Microsoft sales teams on the Defender suite moving into the next year. It's fairly common they will have quotas and stuff that they're pushing that correlates back to where the development has been. So I would expect this to be a new hot topic for the Microsoft salespeople moving into the next couple of quarters as we're going into 2021.
Makes sense.
All right, so let's go ahead and move into rolling out. Since I let you go first, Tom, we're gonna default to Tamara here.
Ooh.
Yay, I'm okay with that.
So Microsoft To Do support for push notifications for shared list activities for work and school accounts. So this update adds the ability to create Microsoft To Do push notifications in work and school accounts, just like you can in your personal account. So that's coming up. And then also Microsoft Teams has full screen support in the new meeting experience. So in full screen mode, the meeting will fill up the whole screen, and the title bar on the top and the taskbar on the bottom of the window will hide. This works on Windows OS. The taskbar is hidden in full screen mode. So if somebody's doing a presentation and the font's not very big, you can go into this full screen mode and make everything a little bit bigger. I find it very helpful being over 50 and using the same eyeballs that I've had for 50 years. So it helps me.
Tom likes it because he's soon to have over 60 eyeballs. So yeah, 60-year-old eyeballs, not 60.
I'm about to say you started.
That would make me like a fly, big black things with a bunch
Tom's
of little
spider. Look out.
So a couple things that I saw on the rolling out list that I found interesting. One, which is just like, it's going to hit you one of these days. You're going to go, whoa, what happened? On Microsoft Teams, the theme and icon updates are in the process of rolling out now. So you're going to see your default icons look slightly different. I think in the past, they've talked about part of this being conforming to the Fluent design standards that they're using everywhere else. So you're going to get updated Teams default and, Adam, wait for it, dark theme background colors. Set to align with the overall Microsoft 365 design vision. The other thing
used to think icons and stuff really matter. Did you see how much everyone freaked out of them updating all the Google icons like a month ago?
Yeah, that did not go over.
Well, they all ended up looking mostly the same, so it makes it hard to tell them apart. It was a stupid move.
Yeah, no. For the most, I think Microsoft does a good job of having the same theme, but they're still their own thing. And that was a big complaint with Google. But like, I've never really cared about icons too much. To me, it is what it is. Like, I'll figure it out. But like, there was a lot of memes created.
Yes, there was. The other thing that I saw that I think is really interesting, I'm actually looking forward to seeing this one come in. So for the Microsoft 365 Admin Center, if you have specific incidents out there saying, hey, nobody can get in, under investigation, stuff like that, you're going to have the ability to subscribe for email updates for that particular incident. Instead of having to keep going back and hit refresh and seeing what the latest is, you'll start getting emails whenever there's a status change. I think that is awesome because there may be 5 incidents out there of only which one is something that really pertains to the area that you're part of. I love the idea that I can just say, hey, I want to subscribe to this, and then I can live in my email box like I normally do, and I can see what the updates are instead of having to bounce back and forth between windows. So I think that's really good. I'm looking forward to that.
This might be, honestly, the biggest thing of the last year that I've been excited to see making progress on the roadmap. Microsoft Compliance Center general availability for GCC and GCC High has moved into rolling out. I was told for forever that this would be Q3, but what's a polite way to say? So there are multiple people that need compliance managers. There's HIPAA organizations out there and FINRA organizations. As a general rule, because this is the industry that Tamara and I live in now, GCC High was primarily developed for people that need FedRAMP moderated stuff. No one is going to go onto GCC High if they're not like a DoD contractor, basically, which basically means everyone going onto GCC High needs to be meeting NIST 800, 171, and eventually CMMC compliance standards. Just basically, period. If you're going onto the GCC High, that makes sense for you. And none of the compliance tools have been there. So the people that are 1,000% they need to be meeting the compliance needs haven't been able to access the tools that Microsoft has made to make this easier. That also means I've got a ton of work from that because they need help to do it. But getting tools that are going to make this easier for us to do, honestly, this might be the thing that's maybe the happiest in the roadmap update. So that should hopefully start showing up in some people's tenants. And it's going to make my life so much easier. So really, really happy to see that.
I'm just impressed you can throw out those acronyms just like boom, boom, boom.
Well, so it's kind of funny. When I first started, I was just completely over my head. You join a call and people would just be throwing acronyms left and right. And I'm sitting there like, I am never going to understand any of this. And now you just eventually kind of get used to it, But yeah, like it is a world of acronyms. But
Yes, it
what
is.
that ultimately means is people need to do compliance things that make them secure, that are government standards they have to meet.
Right.
And when you have like, here's like, it's typically like, oh, like I'm sure everyone's heard of NIST. They do a whole bunch of stuff. Apparently, they even do like what's a pound, what's a a kilogram. Like they're the people that do all that stuff. But outside of all of that, they have standards that you have to meet of like what makes you secure. And like I'm talking like you'll look up the actions that they recommend for you to do, and it's like, well, you just need to do these 670 things, and you'll be fine. It's like, oh, cool.
Yeah, I'll start on that tomorrow. Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else on rolling out, guys?
I'm good.
All right, well, let's move to launched, and we'll do it this way. Tamara's cuter, so we're gonna let her go first.
Yay!
Hey.
So Outlook for Windows, default permissions for sharing links. I'm really excited about this. So when you share a document in Outlook for Windows by inserting a link, the permissions to access the link will be provided by how your administrator sets up your sharing permissions for documents at the organization level. So you don't have to go in and share the document and type that little tiny message that you can send with it. You can actually just send it in an email and it'll set the permissions. Your email message will include a clear clickable link with the document name. So if recipients do not have permission to access the link will turn red with an indicator to update permissions. Now, this is interesting because if you're sending it to a distribution list, the distribution list does not have permissions to the link, but the people in the distribution list might have permissions to the link. It doesn't differentiate between that. So if you're sending it to a disposition list.
Easy for her to say.
That was close-ish.
Thank you. A distribution list, it's going to go red anyway because distribution lists haven't been granted permissions. So a new option allows you to update the permissions directly in the message body. So this is all bringing everything all into one place. I'm really excited about it. I'm really happy inside.
A lot of these things are things we've already touched on before, so I don't really want to any detail. But two that I hadn't seen before, and one I just want to bring back up because I think it's cool. Outlook on the web. If you are dealing with Chinese in Outlook on the web, you're now going to have support for suggested replies in Chinese, People's Republic of China, for customers with mailboxes in the Asia Pacific region. So you can stop typing and just start tabbing your responses so long as it knows what you're doing and you agree with it. Second one was Outlook for Mac. Outlook for Mac now has the natural language search in effect. So instead of having to be a search guru and figure out how to put your ands and your ors and that, you can just type in a natural language search and you're going to be able to get responses back, which you couldn't do in Outlook for Mac before, apparently. And the final one that I thought was really cool is for Microsoft Teams. They've updated the layout for meetings on iOS. So they've moved things around, stacked certain things. So you've got a new presentation mode, the ability to see more participants and see spotlighted videos and things like that. So again, knowing that you're dealing with a much smaller amount of real estate, anything they can do to shift things around and get you more focused on the thing that deserves focus, not all the little paraphernalia stuff that you may need to look at, but only once during the meeting and then get it out of my way because that's not what the meeting's about, I think is a really positive thing. So,
yeah. One more thing I wanted to mention, and it has to do with meetings and Teams, is that now they're allowing you to manage your options, your meeting options, while you're in the meeting. So the meeting organizer can now view and update the meeting options when you're in the meeting, making it easier and faster to manage your meeting options during a meeting. So this is great. You can, like, you forgot and you left the lobby turned on. You're like, I'm so tired of clicking people in through the lobby. You can turn off the lobby.
You want to make Tom raise his hand before he talks, that type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I'm going to follow a similar vein to Tom here. A lot of these are things we've talked about. I'm just going to re-highlight 2 things that I know we've spoken about in the last 4 or 5 shows, but stuff that I'm happy to see move to the launch phase, which is, again, what we're talking about. First and foremost, endpoint DLP. So if you have Microsoft Information Protection, you can start doing DLP actually on endpoints. So on your phone, on your Windows machine, stuff like that. So traditionally, when you think of DLP for Office 365, that's stuff like leaving through email and things like that. You can now start doing actual protections on the stuff that's on the devices that you're managing. And the other one, while not big, just happy to see it, additional message tags in the admin message center. We talked about this before. They're going to give you basically additional metadata tags to help further refine the information that's coming out so you can better understand what the updates are, if it applies to you, if stuff that's relevant, things like that. So again, being an admin, being something that deals with all of that, any refinements they can do that makes that stuff easier to consume and easier to understand, we're down for. So finally, there's only one thing in canceled this week. In typical fashion for them, they're removing it, but they even make a point of saying that they're going to re-add it back in some way, shape, or form. What they canceled was OneDrive sharing links that block download video files. So if you have a video file uploaded into OneDrive and you wanted to share that video with someone, but you didn't want them to be able to download the video, just like stream it online and view it. And why they say they're going to be removing it, they basically say, we are working on refining the feature and date and will provide a new roadmap item in the future. My expectation is there's going to be something like that that allows the consumption but not the downloaded of all types of things, not just videos. And you're going to see something like that incorporated in, which is why they're canceling just this specific one.
Makes sense.
Besides that, guys, from all of us, we really hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I imagine there's going to be a lot of socially distanced Thanksgivings for everyone. So if you're not able to spend time with your loved ones, we feel you. It's okay. Stay safe out there. At the very least, it seems like vaccines are on the way. So hopefully sometime in the near future, we'll be able to get out there and mingle a little bit again. And in the meantime, please make sure you're taking care of yourself, you're staying safe, and don't forget to use your vacation time. I think a lot of us have been in the rut of COVID has been going on. I know we were all talking on the call before we started, and like with COVID, it was so easy to just wake up and work in the morning that like under normal circumstances where you're going to the office and you'd be going and seeing family, it was easier to, I'm going to take a week off in the summer and go out and do something. Well, everyone was shut in this time. And so just make sure you take your time if you have your time and you're trying your best to keep that healthy work balance life. So besides that, guys, have a wonderful week and we'll talk to everyone soon.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks so much. Bye now.
Bye.